The stars burned cold in the darkness beyond the observation deck of Kepler-7 research station. Admiral Sarah Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the distant points of light that marked the edge of human territory. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 23 years, but she had never seen anything like what approached them now. The Galactic Council's armada hung in space like a swarm of silver locusts. There were thousands of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They had sent their message 3 days ago. Humanity would bow to the Council's authority, or humanity would burn. The Council ruled over 200 species across 40,000 light-years. They did not negotiate. They did not compromise. Sarah turned away from the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass. She looked tired. She felt older than her 47 years. "Admiral, we have something." The voice came from behind her. It was Dr. Marcus Webb, the station's lead physicist. He was a thin man with gray hair and eyes that seemed too large for his face. He never slept enough. None of them did anymore. Sarah followed him through the narrow corridors of the station. Kepler-7 was a mining outpost built into a hollowed-out asteroid on the edge of the belt. 3,000 people lived here, pulling rare minerals from the rocks that floated in the darkness. Now those 3,000 people were about to become casualties in a war they never asked for. The command center buzzed with activity. Screens covered every wall, showing data streams and sensor readings. A young lieutenant looked up as Sarah entered. "We found it in Sector 77 Alpha," he said. The miners reported an anomaly. Something big. On the main screen, an image resolved. It was a ship. But calling it a ship felt wrong, like calling a cathedral a building. It was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long. Its surface was smooth and black, covered in patterns that seemed to shift when Sarah looked at them directly. The strange thing was how it appeared on the sensors. The readings flickered, showing the ship in one location, then another, then back again. Sometimes the sensors said nothing was there at all. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked. Dr. Webb pushed his glasses up his nose. "We don't know. It's phased partially out of our spacetime. Quantum superposition on a macro scale. It exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It's impossible, but there it is. Can we board it?" "No, every time we send a probe, it passes right through. The ship is there, but also not there. We can see it, but we can't touch it." Webb pulled up another screen. "But there's more. We analyzed the hull composition from the light reflection. The materials match nothing in our database. Nothing in the Council's database either. This ship is old, Admiral. Millions of years old." Sarah stared at the image. An idea formed in her mind, desperate and dangerous. The Council's ultimatum expires in 18 hours. If we can't access this ship, we have nothing. But if we can... She let the words hang in the air. An alert flashed on one of the screens. A new ship had entered the system. Sarah recognized the design. It was a Council diplomatic vessel. "Put it on screen," a face appeared. It was humanoid, but the skin was blue and the eyes were too far apart. Ambassador Theron of the Council's diplomatic corps. Sarah had met him twice before. He was different from the other Council members. He actually listened when humans spoke. "Admiral Chen," Theron said. His voice was soft. "I come with an unofficial message. The Council High Command knows about your discovery. They are afraid of it. That ship is from the precursor race, the ones who came before all of us. The Council has spent 10,000 years making sure those ships stayed lost. You must not attempt to access it." "Why?" Sarah asked. Theron's eyes shifted, looking at something off-screen. When he looked back, his expression was pained. "Because the precursors were gods, Admiral, and their weapons ended civilizations. The Council fears that humanity might be able to activate what we cannot. There are old stories, old genetic markers. Some believe humans are descended from the precursors themselves." The transmission ended abruptly. Sarah looked at Webb. "Get me a shuttle. I'm going to that ship." "Admiral, we don't know what will happen if you—" 18 hours, Doctor. 18 hours until the Council kills everyone in this sector. We're out of options." The shuttle ride took 40 minutes. Sarah sat alone in the passenger compartment, watching the derelict ship grow larger through the viewport. It filled her vision, a mountain of impossible metal hanging in the void. The patterns on its hull seemed to move like oil on water. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the radio. "We're in position, Admiral. But I don't know how you're going to board. There's nothing solid to dock with." Sarah suited up and activated her magnetic boots. The airlock opened and she pushed herself out into space. The derelict loomed before her, so close she could have touched it. She reached out her gloved hand. Her fingers met solid metal. The ship was real. It was here. The surface felt warm through her glove, almost alive. Patterns flowed under her touch, moving toward her hand like curious fish. Sarah felt something pull at her mind, a presence vast and ancient and waiting. She pressed her palm flat against the hull. The universe turned inside out. Sarah's consciousness exploded outward, rushing through corridors of light and shadow. She stood in a vast chamber that couldn't possibly exist inside the ship she had seen. The walls rose hundreds of meters high, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. A throne sat in the center, built for something human-shaped but larger. A voice spoke inside her mind. It was not words but pure meaning. Inheritor, you have returned. This vessel awaits your command. Sarah tried to speak, but she had no mouth here. She thought instead. Who built you? What are you? We are inevitability. We are the price of peace. We are what the precursors created when they could no longer bear the cost of war. They poured their knowledge into us, their power, their purpose, and then they walked away from godhood. They became small again. They became you, humans. We're descended from the precursors. All roads lead home. All circles close. Your genetic signature is the key. Your neural pattern is the lock. Command us, inheritor. We have waited so long. Sarah felt the weight of it then, the terrible responsibility. This ship could end the war. This ship could end everything. She thought of the 3,000 people on Kepler-7. She thought of the billions of humans spread across the colonies. She thought of what she might become if she said yes. Show me what you can do, she whispered into the darkness. The ship showed her, and Sarah Chen wept at the beauty and horror of it. Sarah opened her eyes and found herself lying on the deck of the shuttle. Dr. Webb was leaning over her, his face pale with worry. Admiral, you've been unconscious for 3 hours. We thought we'd lost you. She sat up slowly. Her head ached, but her mind felt clear. Too clear. She could see things now that she hadn't noticed before. The way light bent around objects. The probability clouds of where people would move next. She blinked and the visions faded. The ship. It spoke to me. What did it say? Sarah looked out the viewport. The derelict was gone. No, not gone. She could still feel it hovering at the edge of perception. It was waiting for her to call it. It said it's been waiting for us. For humans. We're the descendants of the race that built it. Webb's eyes widened. That's impossible. Human evolution is well documented. We came from Earth, from natural selection over millions of years, did we? Or did something guide that evolution? Plant the right DNA in the right place at the right time? Sarah stood. Her legs felt steady. She felt more alive than she had in years. Take us back to the station. I need to brief the crew. The conference room on Kepler-7 was crowded. Every department head was present, along with the senior military officers. Sarah stood at the head of the table and told them everything. About the voice in her head, about the ship that existed in multiple places at once, about the precursors and their terrible legacy. Commander James Rodriguez spoke first. He was Sarah's second in command, a veteran of the border wars. So let me understand this. We have a ghost ship that only you can control. A ship that was built by ancient gods who decided to stop being gods. And you want to use this ship to fight the entire Galactic Council? Yes, Sarah said simply. Admiral, with respect, that sounds insane. It is insane, but so is letting 3 billion humans die without a fight. Sarah touched the table and a hologram appeared above it. It showed the Council's armada, updated with the latest intelligence. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Our best ships are toys compared to theirs. Without the precursor vessel, we lose. With it, we have a chance. Dr. Webb leaned forward. But what is this ship exactly? What can it do? Sarah closed her eyes. The knowledge was there, downloaded into her brain during those 3 hours of connection. It's called a probability vessel. It exists in quantum superposition. It's in multiple locations at once until someone observes it. When it fires its weapons, it doesn't destroy enemy ships. It collapses their probability wave. It makes them never have existed in the first place. Silence filled the room. Finally, Lieutenant Sarah Kim spoke. She was young, barely 25, but she had the highest tactical scores in the fleet. That's not a weapon. That's godlike power. You could erase anything, anyone. How do we control something like that? We don't, Sarah said. I do. The ship bonded to my neural pattern. Only I can command it. Only I can see it fully. To everyone else it will be a ghost. Rodriguez shook his head. And what happens to you, Admiral? What's the cost of using this power? Sarah didn't answer right away. She had seen the cost in the visions the ship had shown her. Every time she interfaced with it, she would lose a piece of herself. She would see more timelines, more possibilities until she couldn't tell what was real anymore. The precursors had abandoned this technology for a reason. It drove them mad. It made them into something inhuman. The cost doesn't matter, she said finally. What matters is survival. An alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed. The communications officer's voice came over the speakers. Admiral Chen to the command center. Immediate priority, Sarah ran. The others followed. The command center was chaos. Every screen showed the same thing. The Council Armada was moving. Not toward Kepler-7. Toward New Horizon Colony, home to 15 million people. Ambassador Theron's face appeared on the main screen. His blue skin looked gray. Admiral Chen, I tried to stop them. The High Command believes you cannot activate the precursor ship in time. They are sending a message. They will destroy New Horizon as punishment for your defiance. You have 1 hour to surrender. The transmission ended. Sarah felt ice in her veins. New Horizon was 3 light hours away. Even at maximum speed, human ships couldn't reach it in time. The colony had minimal defenses. It was a farming world, peaceful and unprotected. 15 million people call the ship, Webb said quietly. If it can exist in multiple places at once, maybe it can reach them in time. Sarah reached out with her mind. She felt the ship respond, eager and hungry. It wanted to be used. It wanted to fulfill its purpose. She could feel its joy at having an inheritor again after millions of years alone in the dark. Come to me, she whispered. Space twisted, reality bent. The inevitability appeared above Kepler-7, flickering in and out of existence. It was there and not there, real and unreal. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, touching the ship's vast intelligence. Take me to New Horizon, she commanded. The universe folded. Sarah stood on the bridge of the inevitability. It was the cathedral she had seen in her vision, but now she understood it. This wasn't a physical place. This was a mental space, an interface between her mind and the ship's systems. Her crew appeared around her, brought along by the ship's power. They looked confused, frightened. Status report, Sarah said, and information flooded her mind. The ship was already at New Horizon. It had moved instantly, jumping through quantum space. The Council fleet was there too, weapons charging. 15 million people on the planet below, unaware that death approached from above. Admiral, what are your orders? Rodriguez asked. He looked pale, overwhelmed by the impossible space around them. Sarah could see the timelines. She could see every possible outcome. In most of them, she fired the quantum weapons. The Council ships vanished, erased from existence. But she saw further. She saw what came after. Humanity drunk on this power. Humanity becoming the new tyrants. The cycle repeating endlessly. But in a few timelines, thin and fragile, she saw another way. A harder way. Hail the Council fleet, she ordered. The face of a Council admiral appeared. His species had scales and 3 eyes. He looked angry. Surrender, human. You cannot stop us. Watch, Sarah said. She reached out with the ship's power, not to destroy, to show. The inevitability appeared in front of every Council ship simultaneously. It was above them and below them and beside them. It was everywhere and nowhere. The Council sensors screamed with impossible data. I could end you, Sarah said. I could erase you from history. But I won't, not today. Leave this place. Tell your High Command that humanity will defend itself. Tell them we have awakened the precursor legacy. Tell them we choose mercy, but we are ready for war. The Council Admiral stared at her. In his 3 eyes she saw fear, real fear. You don't know what you've unleashed, human. The precursors destroyed themselves with these weapons. You will too. Maybe, Sarah said. But not today. Leave. Now. The Council fleet turned and fled into faster-than-light space. 15 million people on New Horizon never knew how close they had come to death. Sarah collapsed. The bridge of the inevitability faded around her. She was back in the command center on Kepler-7, lying on the floor. Blood dripped from her nose. Her head felt like it was splitting apart. Dr. Webb was scanning her with a medical device. Your neural activity is off the charts. Admiral, using that ship is killing you. Sarah wiped the blood from her face. Then I'd better end this war quickly. Outside, the inevitability waited in the darkness, patient and eternal. 6 weeks had passed since the incident at New Horizon. The Council had not attacked again, but they had not withdrawn their ultimatum either. They were waiting, preparing, gathering their forces for a battle they believed they could win. They were wrong. Sarah stood on the bridge of the inevitability, watching the displays that showed human space. The ship had become her home. She spent more time here than on Kepler 7 now. It was easier. In this quantum space, she didn't have to face the worried looks from her crew. She didn't have to see the fear in their eyes when they looked at her. She had changed. She could feel it. Time moved differently for her now. Sometimes she saw moments before they happened. Sometimes she remembered things that hadn't occurred yet. The ship was bleeding into her mind, or she was bleeding into the ship. The line between Sarah Chen and the inevitability was becoming harder to find. "Admiral, we have a situation." Commander Rodriguez's voice pulled her back to the present. He appeared beside her on the bridge, his consciousness connected through the quantum link. "The Council's 7th Fleet is blockading New Terra. 200 ships. They're demanding surrender of the entire planet. New Terra, the crown jewel of human colonization. 18 billion people, the heart of human civilization outside Earth itself." Sarah felt her anger rise cold and sharp. "How long until they begin bombardment?" 6 hours. "But Admiral, there are 3,000 civilian ships in orbit. Transports, freighters, passenger liners. If we fight, they'll be caught in the crossfire." Sarah closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand through the ship. She could see New Terra, feel the lives on its surface. She could see the Council fleet, their weapons charging, their crews preparing for battle, and she could see the civilian ships fragile and unprotected. "We're going," she said, the universe bent. The inevitability arrived at New Terra in an instant. But it didn't appear in one place. It appeared in 20 places at once, surrounding the Council fleet in a sphere of impossible geometry. On every Council ship, sensors went insane. Their computers couldn't process what they were seeing. Sarah opened a channel to all Council vessels. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Inevitability. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have threatened civilian populations. You will leave now or you will be removed." The Council fleet commander responded. She was a tall being with silver skin and no visible eyes. "You are one ship, human. We are 200. Your tricks will not save you." "Tricks?" Sarah smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Let me show you what we can do." She reached out with the ship's power. Not to destroy yet, to demonstrate. The inevitability appeared directly in front of the Council flagship, so close their hulls almost touched. Then it was behind them, then above, then in 3 places at once. The Council ships opened fire, but their weapons passed through empty space. The inevitability was never where they aimed. "You can't hit what exists in superposition," Sarah said. "You can't destroy what's never entirely real. Last chance, leave." The Council commander's voice was sharp with anger. "Fire everything. Target all positions." 200 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. Enough firepower to crack a planet. It all passed through the inevitability like light through fog. Sarah had given them a chance. They had refused it. "Target their weapon systems," she ordered. "Collapse their offensive capabilities." The inevitability's quantum weapons activated. They didn't fire beams or missiles. They simply chose a reality where the Council ships had never been armed. Probability waves collapsed. 200 warships suddenly found their weapons gone. Not destroyed, but simply never installed. The crews looked at empty weapon mounts and couldn't remember what had been there. Panic spread through the Council fleet. Ships broke formation, trying to escape to faster than light speed. Sarah let them go. She had made her point, but one ship remained. A small courier vessel, fast and light. It broadcast on an open channel. "Admiral Chen, this is Ambassador Theron. I must speak with you." "Please." Sarah brought him aboard, manifesting a physical space for the meeting. Theron appeared in the cathedral bridge, looking small and frightened. His blue skin had paled to almost white. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, humiliating the Council fleet, making their weapons vanish. "The High Command will see this as an existential threat." "It is," Sarah said. "That's the point. You don't understand. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. They have eliminated every species that showed potential to surpass them. They have destroyed entire civilizations to maintain their supremacy. Now you have proven that humans have access to precursor technology. They will not stop until humanity is extinct. Sarah felt the weight of his words. She had known this would escalate, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. Then what would you have me do? Surrender? Let them enslave humanity? Theron looked around at the impossible architecture of the ship. The Council has archives, records of the precursor age. There are things they have never told the younger species. The precursors didn't just disappear. They destroyed themselves. These ships, these weapons, they corrupted everyone who used them. The power was too great. It made them into monsters. I'm not a monster, Sarah said, but even as she spoke, she felt the lie in it. She had erased the weapons from 200 ships. She had reached into reality and changed it. What was that if not monstrous? Not yet, Theron said gently. But I can see it starting, Admiral. The way you stand, the way you speak. You're becoming something else, something beyond human. The ship is changing you. Sarah wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. She could feel the changes accelerating. Every time she used the ship's power, she lost a little more of herself. She saw more timelines, more possibilities. Sometimes she forgot which reality she was in. Sometimes she started a sentence in one timeline and finished it in another. Dr. Webb had warned her. Her neural patterns were fragmenting, spreading across quantum states. Eventually, she would be locked permanently between realities, unable to exist fully in any of them. How long do I have? She asked quietly. Before you lose yourself completely? Weeks, maybe days if you keep using the ship at this intensity. Theron stepped closer. There's still time to stop this. Seal the ship away. Let it drift back into quantum space. Choose your humanity over this power. An alarm sounded. Lieutenant Kim's voice came through the quantum link. Admiral, new contacts. It's not the Council fleet. I don't know what it is. Something big. Really big. Sarah's consciousness expanded. She saw it approaching New Terra. A vessel that dwarfed even the inevitability. It was ugly, brutal, covered in weapons and armor. It radiated power that made space itself ripple. What is that? She asked Theron. The ambassador's face went gray. It's the Absolute. The Council's ultimate weapon. They built it from precursor fragments they found over thousands of years. It's a reality anchor. It forces quantum objects into a single state. Admiral, it will make your ship vulnerable. It will lock you into normal space where you can be destroyed. Sarah felt fear for the first time since bonding with the inevitability. The ship felt it too. She could sense its concern, its uncertainty. For all its power, it had never faced a weapon designed specifically to counter it. Can we win? She asked the ship. The answer came back heavy with doubt. Unknown. No combat data. Recommend withdrawal. Admiral, we should retreat, Rodriguez said. We can't risk losing the inevitability in a fight we might not win. Sarah looked at New Terra below. 18 billion people. She thought of the 3,000 civilian ships still in orbit, unable to evacuate in time. She thought of what would happen if she ran. The Council would take New Terra. They would make an example of it. No, she said. We fight. Prepare for combat. All hands to battle stations. The Absolute moved into position and space itself began to scream. The Absolute activated its reality anchor. Sarah felt it immediately. A pressure against her mind like drowning in concrete. The quantum space around the inevitability began to solidify. The ship flickered, its superposition collapsing. For the first time since she had bonded with it, the ship was becoming fully real. Hull integrity dropping, Lieutenant Kim reported. We're solidifying into normal space. Admiral, we're vulnerable. Sarah gritted her teeth. The pain was incredible. It felt like someone was pulling her consciousness through a meat grinder. She existed in 17 different quantum states, and now they were all being forced into one. Can we fight it? The ship's trying, Dr. Webb said. His voice came through strained, frightened. But the Absolute's anchor is too strong. It was designed specifically for this. Admiral, we need to retreat while we still can. Through the viewports, Sarah could see the Absolute. It was massive, easily twice the size of the inevitability. Its hull bristled with weapons all aimed at them. The Council had spent thousands of years building this monster. They had prepared for this exact scenario. Incoming fire, Rodriguez shouted. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the inevitability's hull. The ship shuddered. Sarah felt the impacts like punches to her body. The quantum armor that had made them invincible was failing. They were taking damage. Real damage. Return fire, Sarah ordered. The inevitability's weapons activated, but they were different now. Locked into normal space, the quantum weapons couldn't collapse probability waves. They were just ordinary weapons, powerful but not godlike. The beams struck the Absolute's armor and splashed off like water on stone. No effect, Kim reported. Their armor is too thick. Our weapons can't penetrate. Sarah closed her eyes and reached deeper into the ship. There had to be a way. The precursors had built the inevitability to be unbeatable. There had to be something she was missing. The ship responded, showing her systems she hadn't known existed. Deeper protocols, emergency measures, things the precursors had installed for desperate situations. But as she touched these systems, she felt the cost. Using them would burn through her neural patterns like acid through paper. She would lose more of herself. Maybe all of herself. Admiral, we have civilian ships breaking orbit, Rodriguez said. They're trying to escape, but they're right in the firing line. If the Absolute fires again, Sarah made her decision. Transfer all power to shields. Get between the Absolute and those civilian ships now. The inevitability moved, positioning itself as a wall between the Absolute and the fleeing civilians. The Council ship fired again, and the inevitability took the full brunt of the assault. The shields held, but barely. Shield strength at 40%, Kim said. One more hit like that and we're done. Ambassador Theron appeared on the bridge through a holographic link from his ship. Admiral, I'm transmitting the Council's offer. They will spare the civilians if you surrender yourself and the inevitability. They want to study the ship, understand its technology. And what happens to humanity? Theron looked away. They will be allowed to exist, under Council supervision. Limited technology, limited growth. They will survive, but they will never be free. Sarah laughed, but it was bitter. So slavery or death, those are the options? Yes, Theron said quietly. I'm sorry. The Absolute was charging for another shot. Sarah could see it, feel it. This next attack would overwhelm their shields. The ship would be destroyed and she would die. Part of her welcomed it. Death would be easier than what she was becoming. The quantum fragmentation had spread so far that she sometimes forgot her own name. She had conversations with people who weren't there. She remembered futures that would never happen. But she thought of the 18 billion people on New Terra, the 3,000 civilian ships now safely jumping to faster-than-light speed, the billions more humans across the colonies. They deserved better than slavery. They deserved freedom. Dr. Webb, she said. You told me the ship has sister vessels, other precursor ships locked in quantum space. Can you find them? Webb looked confused. We maybe? The quantum signatures would be similar to the inevitability. But Admiral, even if we find them, we can't reach them. Not while the Absolute has us pinned. Sarah smiled. It was a terrible smile, empty and cold. You don't need to reach them. You just need to find them. I'll do the rest. She accessed the deepest protocols in the inevitability. The emergency systems. The things the precursors had built for when everything else failed. She saw what it would cost her. Complete neural integration. She would merge fully with the ship, become part of its quantum network. She would exist in all times and all places simultaneously. She would become what the precursors had been before they chose to be human again. She would become a god, and gods were not human. Do it, she whispered to the ship. The inevitability hesitated. This action is irreversible. Operator consciousness will fragment across all quantum states. Operator will lose individual identity. Confirm order? Confirmed. Pain exploded through Sarah's mind. Her consciousness shattered into a billion pieces, each one connected to the others through quantum entanglement. She was on the bridge and in the engine room and outside the ship and inside the stars. She was Sarah Chen and she was the inevitability and she was everything and nothing. Through her fragmented awareness, she reached out across space. She found the sister ships hidden in quantum space just as the inevitability had been. 3 more vessels, each as powerful as the first. She touched them with her mind and spoke the ancient codes. The precursor authorization that only an inheritor could give. Awaken, she said with a voice that echoed across dimensions. The 3 ships appeared around New Terra, materializing from quantum space. 4 precursor vessels now surrounded the Absolute. The Council's ultimate weapon suddenly looked small and fragile. This is Admiral Chen, she said, and her voice came from all 4 ships at once. You wanted to see the full power of the precursors? Here it is. 4 probability vessels, all quantum locked, all under my command. You cannot fight this. You cannot win this. The Absolute's reality anchor strained. trying to lock 4 ships into normal space at once. It couldn't. The technology whined and overloaded. Explosions rippled across the Absolute's hull as the anchor system tore itself apart. Free from the anchor's constraint, the 4 Inevitability-class vessels phased back into superposition. They surrounded the Absolute in a quantum cage existing in every position at once. "I could erase you," Sarah said. "I could make it so you never existed. But I won't, not yet. Return to the Council. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them that humanity has awakened the precursor legacy. Tell them we want peace, but we will have freedom." The Absolute retreated, limping away on damaged engines. The Council fleet scattered, fleeing in all directions. Sarah should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt empty. She looked down at her hands and saw them flickering, existing in multiple states at once. She tried to remember her mother's face and couldn't. She tried to remember what it felt like to be hungry, to be tired, to be human. She couldn't. "Admiral?" Dr. Webb's voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. "Are you still there?" "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "Am I?" She existed across 4 ships now, her consciousness distributed across quantum space. She was more powerful than any being in the galaxy. She could see every possible future, every possible past. She was becoming what the precursors had been, and she finally understood why they had chosen to walk away from it all. 3 months passed. The Council had withdrawn from human space, but they had not surrendered. They gathered their forces at Axiom Prime, their fortress world, and prepared for a final battle. 300 species, 10,000 ships, the combined might of galactic civilization, all focused on destroying humanity. Sarah Chen no longer lived on Kepler 7. She no longer lived anywhere. Her body existed on the bridge of the original Inevitability, but it was just a shell. Her consciousness was spread across all 4 precursor vessels, existing in quantum superposition. She was in a million places at once, seeing every possible timeline. She had won 17 battles in those 3 months. Each victory came easier than the last. The Council ships couldn't touch her. Their weapons passed through quantum space like shadows. Their tactics were meaningless against an enemy who could see every possible move they might make. She was unbeatable. She was also alone. Commander Rodriguez visited her sometimes, projecting his consciousness into the quantum space, but she could see the fear in his eyes. She wasn't Sarah anymore. She was something else. Something vast and terrible and incomprehensible. "The Council is requesting a final meeting," Rodriguez said. "Ambassador Theron wants to speak with you before the last battle begins." Sarah pulled her consciousness together, trying to focus on a single point. It was getting harder. She existed in so many quantum states that focusing on just one felt like trying to hold water in her hands. "Send him through." Theron appeared on the bridge. He looked older, tired. "Admiral Chen, or should I call you something else now? You're not really human anymore, are you?" "I don't know what I am," Sarah said. Her voice echoed strangely, as if 1,000 versions of her were speaking slightly out of sync. "I came to show you something." Theron waved his hand, and a hologram appeared. It showed an ancient chamber filled with scrolls and data crystals. "This is from the Council's deepest archives. Records of the precursor age. Do you want to know why they abandoned this technology? Why they chose to become small and mortal again?" "Tell me," Sarah said. "They were dying. Not physically, but spiritually. The quantum weapons, the probability vessels, they were corrupting them from the inside. Every time they used the power, they lost more of their identity. They saw so many timelines that they couldn't remember which one was real. They forgot how to love, how to feel, how to be alive. In the end, they weren't individuals anymore. They were just quantum patterns, empty and cold." Theron looked at her with pity. "They built the vessels as prisons, Admiral. Not for others, but for themselves. They locked their worst impulses into these ships and hid them in quantum space. Then they stripped themselves of godhood and started over. They became human. They chose limitation over power because limitation is what makes us real." Sarah felt something crack inside her. She looked at her hands, flickering between quantum states. She tried to remember her childhood, her first love, her reasons for joining the fleet. The memories were there, but they felt like stories she had heard about someone else. "So I'm becoming what they feared," she said quietly. "Yes. And if you use the ships to destroy the Council fleet at Axiom Prime, you'll complete the transformation. He'll be too far gone to ever come back." Dr. Webb's voice came through the quantum link. "There's more, Admiral. I've been studying your neural patterns. The quantum integration is accelerating. After the next major battle, you'll lose yourself completely. You'll exist as a quantum pattern, but there won't be anything recognizably Sarah Chen left. Sarah closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand. She saw the future timelines. In most of them, she attacked Axiom Prime. She erased the Council fleet from existence. Humanity became the dominant power in the galaxy. But in all those timelines, she was gone. Just a ghost in the machines, a presence without personality. But there were other timelines, thinner, more fragile. In those, she made a different choice. "Can I speak to the Council High Command?" she asked. Theron nodded. "I can arrange it. But Admiral, they won't surrender. They're too proud, too afraid. They see you as an existential threat to the entire galactic order." "I am," Sarah said. "That's the problem." The communication was established. 12 faces appeared on holographic screens, representing the 12 species that ruled the Council. They looked at her with a mixture of fear and hatred. The High Counselor spoke first. She was ancient, her species having evolved intelligence 100 million years ago. "Human, you have terrorized this galaxy long enough. We will not bow to you. We will fight to our last ship." Sarah didn't argue. Instead, she reached out with her quantum consciousness. She touched the minds of all 12 counselors simultaneously, and she showed them something. Not violence, not threats. She showed them her memories. She showed them Sarah Chen at age 7 crying because her pet cat had died. She showed them Sarah at 20, falling in love for the first time. She showed them Sarah standing at her mother's funeral, feeling the weight of loss. She showed them what it meant to be human, to be small and fragile and mortal, to know that every moment was precious because there weren't infinite moments. And then she showed them what she had become. The emptiness, the cold vastness of existing in quantum superposition, the loneliness of seeing every possible timeline at once. She showed them the price of godhood. "This is what the precursor weapons do," she said. "This is what I've become. I am the most powerful being in the galaxy. I can erase your entire fleet with a thought. I can rewrite reality itself. But I can't remember what it felt like to taste chocolate. I can't remember why I used to love watching sunsets. I'm losing everything that makes existence worth living." The counselors were silent, processing what she had shown them. "The precursors made these weapons when they had forgotten how to value life," Sarah continued. "They became so powerful that individual lives stopped mattering. Entire civilizations were just numbers to them. But then they realized what they had lost. So they chose to walk away from power. They chose to be mortal again." "What are you saying?" the High Counselor asked. "I'm saying that I'm going to make the same choice. I'm going to seal these ships away, lock them back in quantum space where no one can find them. Not humans, not the Council, not anyone. Because this power corrupts everything it touches." "And why should we trust you?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Because I'm going to encrypt the location of all 4 ships into something that can't be extracted or accessed. I'm going to lock the coordinates into the quantum foam itself, scattered across the universe. No one will ever be able to find them again." "You would give up ultimate power, just like that?" "Yes, because I remember now. I remember what I'm fighting for. Not dominance, not power, just the right of humans to exist freely, to make our own choices, to be small and mortal and alive." She reached out to the 4 inevitability-class vessels. She felt their resistance. They wanted to be used. They wanted to fulfill their purpose. But she was still their commander, still an inheritor. Her word was law. "Sleep," she commanded. "Return to quantum space. Hide yourselves where none can find you. Be forgotten." The ships began to phase out of normal space. But Sarah did one more thing. She took her fragmented consciousness, all the pieces scattered across quantum states, and she poured them into the ships. She made herself part of their quantum lock. Anyone who wanted to find the vessels would have to find her first, and she would be spread across infinite dimensions. "Admiral, no!" Dr. Webb shouted. "If you do this, you'll be trapped forever. You'll exist in quantum superposition for eternity, never able to return to normal space." "I know," Sarah said, "but it's the only way to be sure, the only way to keep this power from corrupting anyone else." She felt herself dissolving, her consciousness spreading across dimensions. It didn't hurt. It felt like letting go of a heavy weight she had carried for too long. Her last coherent thought was of Earth, of blue skies and green fields, of her mother's smile, of everything small and beautiful and finite. The 4 ships vanished. On Kepler 7 in the command center, Sarah Chen's body collapsed. Dr. Webb caught her before she hit the floor. She was breathing, but her eyes were empty. Her mind was gone, scattered across quantum space. Commander Rodriguez stood at the window watching the stars. "Did we win?" he asked. "I don't know," Webb said quietly. "But humanity survives, and the weapons are gone. Maybe that's victory enough." Ambassador Theron transmitted one final message to the Council High Command. "The human admiral has sealed the precursor vessels. They are beyond reach now. The threat is neutralized. I recommend peace." The Council debated for 3 days. In the end, fear won out over pride. They signed the treaty. Humanity would be independent, free to grow and evolve without Council interference. In exchange, humans would never seek out the precursor weapons. The locations were lost anyway. Locked in quantum space with Sarah Chen's consciousness. 100 years passed. Then 200. Humanity spread across the stars, building a civilization of their own. They never found the ships. Sometimes, though, young cadets in the fleet would report strange dreams. Dreams of a vast presence watching over them. Dreams of a voice that sounded like warning and promise combined. The inevitability drifted in quantum space, existing everywhere and nowhere. And inside its quantum core, Sarah Chen's consciousness flickered like a candle flame. She could not speak. She could not act. But she could watch. She could guard. She could remember what she had been and why she had made her choice. Sometimes, across the vast quantum network, she felt happy. She had saved humanity from the Council. But more importantly, she had saved humanity from becoming what she had been. She had saved them from godhood and all its terrible emptiness. In the end, that was enough. The ship slept in the darkness between dimensions, locked and hidden and eternal. 4 monuments to the price of power. 4 warnings to anyone who might seek them. And in human space, in a small museum on New Terra, there stood a statue. It showed a woman in a uniform, her hand reaching toward the stars. The plaque beneath read, "Admiral Sarah Chen, the price of our freedom. Never forgotten." Children visited the statue and asked their parents who she was. The parents told them about the war, about the sacrifice, about the choice between power and humanity. And the children learned the lesson that the precursors had learned so long ago. Some gifts are too dangerous to accept. Some powers are too great to wield. And sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to walk away. The universe turned and time flowed on. And in the spaces between spaces, Sarah Chen kept her eternal watch. A guardian at the gate, making sure that the doors to godhood stayed forever closed. Commander Alex Donovan stared at the official decree on his screen. His hands trembled slightly as he read it for the 3rd time. The words remained the same, but he still couldn't believe them. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, all human military forces are hereby banned from participation in any interstellar conflict. Earth vessels are restricted to defensive operations within Sol system only. The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as the final vote was tallied. Humans sat on one side of the Grand Hall, representatives from 26 alien species on the other. The division wasn't just physical, it was philosophical. Alex watched as Admiral Laura Bennett, Earth's highest-ranking officer, stood to address the Council. Her uniform was crisp, but her face showed the strain of the past 3 months. "We came when you called for help," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious anger. "We sacrificed our ships and our people to stop the Krell invasion. And this is how you thank us?" The massive Dralken representative, Ambassador Ko Lath, rose from his seat. His 4 arms were held in a formal posture of respect, but his voice carried a hint of fear. "The vote is not about gratitude, Admiral, it is about methods. In the Battle of Proxima Centauri, your forces deliberately vented reactor plasma to create a trap for pursuing Krell ships." "A trap that worked," Laura countered. "A trap that killed every living being in that system's outer belt mining colonies," Kolath said. "Your captain didn't even check if evacuation was complete." Alex remembered that battle. Captain Frank Martinez had made a hard call, sacrificed 2,000 to save 2 billion. No human commander questioned the math. But the aliens did. Ambassador Zilthar of the Ashari Conclave stood next. The slender, blue-skinned diplomat's voice was gentle but firm. "Humans don't calculate odds," Zilthar said. "You just decide to win, no matter the cost. Your species treats war differently than the rest of us. You don't see it as a political tool or a last resort. You see it as a problem to be solved by any means necessary. Alex couldn't argue with that. Humanity had entered the galactic stage just 5 years ago when a Krell scouting fleet entered Sol system. Earth's United Defense Forces had destroyed them in days, using tactics the aliens considered barbaric, but effective. When the full Krell Dominion launched their campaign to conquer Council space a year later, humanity was invited to join the fight. The Council had expected Earth to contribute a few ships, some resources. Instead, humanity threw everything they had into the war. They converted passenger ships into carriers, mining tools into weapons, and civilian stations into fortresses. The Krell expected to face the methodical, rule-bound Council forces. Instead, they met humans who fought without concern for themselves, who sacrificed single ships to destroy larger targets, who used civilian infrastructure as bait to draw enemies into ambushes. In 18 months, the Krell were defeated, but the Council was horrified by humanity's methods. "The ban is effective immediately," announced Grand Counselor Valsheen. "All human military vessels must return to Sol system within 30 days. Non-compliance will result in further sanctions." Alex looked around the Earth delegation. Some faces showed anger, others resignation. They had known this was coming. 3 days later, Alex sat in the officer's lounge of the Earth defense vessel Intrepid as it prepared to depart Council space. The ship had lost 40% of its crew in the final battle against the Krell flagship. Those who remained were mostly quiet as they watched news feeds from across the galaxy. "They're calling us savages," said Lieutenant Samantha Powell, sliding into the seat across from Alex. She pushed a tablet toward him displaying headlines from various alien news sources. "Humans, too dangerous to fight alongside. Council bans reckless Earth forces, the species that knows no limits in war." Alex pushed the tablet away. "We won their war for them." "That's the problem," said a voice from behind. Captain Olivia Wells joined them, her face showing the fatigue they all felt. "We showed them something they didn't want to see." "What's that, Captain?" Alex asked. "That their rules of war don't work against an enemy that doesn't play by the rules," she said, taking a seat. "The Krell would have wiped them out if they kept fighting with their neat battle formations and their careful proportional responses." Samantha nodded. "So they're scared of us because we fight dirty?" "They're scared of us because we don't see it as fighting dirty," Olivia corrected. "We see it as surviving." Alex thought about the Battle of Proxima Centauri again, about Captain Martinez making the call to sacrifice those miners, about how every human officer understood the decision, while every alien ally was horrified. Not by the deaths. The galaxy was no stranger to casualties, but by the casual way humans accepted them as necessary. "What happens now?" he asked. "We go home," Olivia said simply. "We develop our technology, strengthen our defenses, and wait." "Wait for what?" Samantha asked. "For the day they need us again," Olivia replied. "Because they will. The galaxy is too big and too dangerous for their careful approach to last forever." As Earth's fleet made its way home, delegations from across Council space watched them depart. Some with relief, others with concern. In private chambers, debates had already begun about whether the ban was wise. Ambassador Zilthar sat with Grand Counselor Valsheen in her private study. "They saved us," Zilthar said quietly. "At what cost?" Valsheen replied. "Their methods break every ethical code we have established for warfare. Perhaps our codes were made for a more civilized time," Zilthar suggested. "The Krell showed no mercy, followed no rules, and neither did the humans," Valsheen said. "That is precisely why they are dangerous." Zilthar looked out at the departing Earthships, visible as tiny points of light against the blackness of space. "I fear we may have made a terrible mistake," he said. "Not because we need their protection, but because we have just shown every potential enemy in the galaxy that humans are the species to fear. We have painted a target on their world." Valsheen nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but the vote is done. The humans will return to their system, and the galaxy will have time to forget their methods." But as Commander Alex Donovan's ship jumped to faster than light speed heading back to Earth, he knew the galaxy wouldn't forget. And neither would humanity. "We'll be back," he whispered to himself. "And next time, they'll understand why we fight the way we do." The fleet returned to a hero's welcome on Earth. News of the ban spread quickly, but instead of outrage, Alex was surprised to find most humans simply shrugged it off. "Let them handle their own wars then," was the common response. "We'll take care of our own." But deep in secure facilities across Earth, military planners were already at work. If humanity couldn't fight alongside the galactic community, they would prepare to fight alone. And somewhere beyond known space, forces were gathering that would make the Krell look like a minor threat. Forces that wouldn't follow rules of engagement or honor surrenders. Forces that would test the Council's ban on human warfare to its breaking point. 50 years passed since the ban. Earth turned inward, developing its technology in isolation. The old warriors like Commander Alex Donovan had long since retired or passed away. A new generation of humans had grown up hearing stories about the galaxy but never experiencing it firsthand. Captain Olivia Donovan stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Relentless, staring at the stars through the main viewport. At 45, she had her grandfather's strong jaw and determined eyes. She had joined Earth's defense forces to follow in his footsteps, though the missions had changed. No more grand battles across the stars, just patrols of the Sol system, and occasional escort duties for the few merchant ships allowed to trade with nearby Council worlds. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission," said Lieutenant Eric Barnes from the communications station. It's from the Galactic Council." Olivia turned sharply. The Council rarely contacted Earth directly these days. "On screen," she ordered. The face that appeared was blue-skinned with large silver eyes. An Ashari. But not just any Ashari. This was Ambassador Treljar, son of the famous Zilthar, who had been present at the Council meeting that banned humans 50 years ago. "Captain Donovan," Treljar said, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of his species. "I am contacting you on a matter of extreme urgency. The Council requests Earth's immediate assistance." Olivia kept her face neutral. "Ambassador, Earth has honored the ban for 50 years. What assistance could you possibly need that doesn't violate your own rules?" Treljar's silver eyes darkened slightly, a sign of distress in Ashari. 3 months ago, a new species entered Council space from the Cygnus arm. We call them the Void Swarm. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply consume. Behind her, Olivia heard her crew shifting uneasily. They had all trained for war their entire careers, but none had seen actual combat. "How many worlds?" she asked quietly. 17 completely lost. 12 more under attack. The Council's peacekeeping forces have been systematically overwhelmed. The Void Swarm adapts to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones. Olivia walked closer to the screen. "And now you want the savages to help you?" Treljar showed no offense at her bluntness. "The Council has voted. We are not asking for your military. The ban remains. We are asking for observers, advisors, 12 humans with combat experience to observe our operations and provide perspective." "Perspective," Olivia repeated flatly. "You want our ideas, but not our ships or soldiers." "Those are the terms the Council approved," Treljar replied. "I pushed for more, but fear and pride are powerful forces, Captain." Olivia thought for a moment. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command." "Of course. But please hurry. The Thalasian homeworld fell yesterday. 8 billion souls. The evacuation ships didn't even make it out of orbit." The transmission ended and Olivia turned to her XO, Commander Paul Wright. "What do you think?" she asked. Paul's eyes were hard. "I think they're desperate but still too proud to admit they need us. They want our brains but not our guns." "That's how I see it too," Olivia said. "Set course for Earth. I want to make this pitch to command in person." 3 weeks later, 12 humans prepared to board a Council diplomatic vessel in Earth orbit. Lieutenant Ryan Miller checked his luggage one last time. No weapons, the Council had been very clear about that. Just observation equipment, data pads, and civilian clothes. Ready for this? Asked Chief Science Officer Heather Caldwell as she joined him in the shuttle bay. Ryan shrugged. Ready to watch aliens fight a losing war while we take notes? Not really. Heather smiled grimly. That's not why we're going. No? Ryan raised an eyebrow. No, she said firmly. We're going because Captain Donovan believes the Council will eventually have no choice but to ask for real help. And when they do, we need to already be out there with intelligence on the enemy. The Council ship that collected them was sleek and beautiful, with none of the practical armor or weapon mounts that characterized Earth vessels. The Ashari captain, Krelvos, treated them with polite distance. You will be divided among our flagship vessels, he explained as they entered faster than light travel. 2 humans per battle group. You will observe, report your findings to Council commanders but not interfere in operations. Ryan and Heather were assigned to the Thalasian flagship Dawn Eternal, the largest vessel in the Council's fleet. Its commander, Admiral Kylzin, met them in the ship's grand receiving hall. Like all Thalasians, he was tall and thin with iridescent skin that shifted colors slightly with his moods. Currently, it had a grayish tinge that Ryan guessed meant stress or fatigue. Welcome aboard, Kylzin said without warmth. Your quarters are on Deck 7. You will have access to the observation deck during battles, but not the command center. That will make it difficult for us to provide useful insights, Heather pointed out. Those are my orders, Kylzin replied. The Council wants your observations, not your direct involvement in tactical decisions. 3 days later, Ryan stood on the observation deck as the Dawn Eternal and its battle group engaged a portion of the Void Swarm near the Procyon system. The swarm ships were bizarre, part organic, part mechanical, shaped like elongated insects with multiple segments. Ryan watched as the Council fleet executed a perfect pincer movement, surrounding a group of smaller swarm vessels. For a moment, it seemed like the tactic might work. Then, with startling speed, the swarm ships changed formation, linking together to form a larger structure that fired massive energy beams through the Council formation. 3 Council ships were destroyed. In seconds, the rest broke formation and retreated. They're fighting with perfect military doctrine, Ryan noted to Heather as they reviewed the battle footage later in their quarters. That's the problem, she replied. The swarm adapts to patterns. They need chaos. Ryan nodded. They need us. They submitted their observation report suggesting more unpredictable tactics, but Admiral Kylzin dismissed their input. Council battle doctrine has been refined over thousands of years, he told them stiffly. Over the next 2 months, Ryan and Heather watched as battle after battle ended in retreat. The Void Swarm pushed deeper into Council space, consuming resources and leaving lifeless husks of planets behind. After the fall of Arcturus, a major Council stronghold, Admiral Kylzin finally came to their quarters personally. His skin had turned almost completely gray. Tell me what you would do, he demanded. Ryan's response was simple. Something they won't expect. Heather had been analyzing the swarm's movement patterns for weeks. They adapt to predictability, she explained. But they might have a weakness. They seem to have trouble processing multiple simultaneous threats that don't follow logical patterns. Kylzin looked skeptical. You're suggesting we abandon battle formation? Fight without coordination? I'm suggesting controlled chaos, Heather said. Let each ship captain make independent decisions within an overall strategic framework. That's not how we fight, Kylzin said, but his tone had lost some of its certainty. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for yet another defensive stand, news came that the Thalasian colony of New Hope was next in the swarm's path. A planet with 80 million civilians and evacuation capabilities for barely a tenth of that number. That night, Ryan and Heather made their decision. The Council wasn't ready to listen, but Earth needed to know what they were facing. While the ship's crew slept, they slipped away to the communications center and sent a coded message back to Earth with everything they had learned about the swarm. Then they returned to their quarters to wait. The battle for New Hope was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in humanity's relationship with the galaxy. The Thalasian flagship Dawn Eternal moved into position above New Hope Colony. From the observation deck, Ryan and Heather watched as the rest of the Council fleet formed a defensive barrier around the planet. Their perfect formation looked impressive, but predictable. Exactly what had failed against the Void Swarm in every previous battle. "They're going to lose again," Ryan said quietly. 80 million people down there, and they're using the same tactics that failed at Arcturus. Heather nodded. Her eyes focused on the datapad in her hands. For weeks she had been gathering information on the swarm's behavior patterns, looking for any weakness. Now she showed Ryan what she'd found. "Look at this. When the swarm ships connect to form larger structures, there's a 3-second energy surge here and here." She pointed to specific points on the diagram. "They're vulnerable during that moment." "Have you shown this to Admiral Kylzin?" Ryan asked. "Twice. He says it's too risky to attack during the transformation. Council doctrine says to retreat when the swarm begins to combine ships." Ryan frowned. "That's exactly why they keep losing. They do what the swarm expects." A soft chime from their communication device interrupted them. It was a secure message from Earth. Captain Olivia Donovan's face appeared on the small screen. "Lieutenant Miller, Officer Caldwell, we received your data packet. Earth Command has made a decision based on your intelligence." Her expression was grim but determined. "The Earth Defense Fleet is mobilizing. 50 ships will arrive at New Hope in approximately 12 hours. You need to prepare the Council fleet." Ryan and Heather exchanged shocked looks. "Captain," Ryan replied, "the Council hasn't approved military intervention. If Earth sends ships, it violates the ban." "Earth Command is aware," Olivia said simply. "The decision has been made. 80 million lives are at stake. Prepare the Council commanders as best you can." The transmission ended. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Well, this changes everything." "We need to tell Admiral Kylzin," Heather said. "He needs to know Earth ships are coming." When they requested an urgent meeting with the Admiral, they were surprised to be granted immediate access to the command center, something previously forbidden to them. The atmosphere on the bridge was tense. Tactical displays showed the Void Swarm approaching, larger than any force they had yet encountered. Admiral Kylzin's skin had paled to an almost white color. "You wanted to see me, humans?" Ryan stepped forward. "Admiral, we've received word from Earth. Our defense fleet is on the way to assist in the defense of New Hope." The command center fell silent. Kylzin's eyes widened. "That violates the Council ban?" "Yes, it does," Heather said calmly. 50 ships will be here in approximately 12 hours. They're coming to help whether the Council approves or not. One of the Thalasian officers spoke up. "Admiral, the evacuation ships can only take 7 million people. We need at least 3 days to get them off planet." Kylzin looked at the tactical display again, then back at the humans. "What are you suggesting we do?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Fight differently, right now, before Earth arrives. Give the evacuation ships time." "How?" Kylzin asked, his voice softer than they had ever heard it. Heather activated her datapad and projected her findings onto the main display. "The swarm has a weakness during transformation, a 3-second window where they're vulnerable. But, to exploit it, ships would need to attack independently without central coordination. That goes against all Council battle doctrine," another officer protested. "Yes," Ryan said. "That's exactly the point. Do what they don't expect you to do." Admiral Kylzin was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all ships. New battle plan. Each captain has independent attack authority. Target the connection points when swarm ships begin to combine. No retreat unless individually necessary." The officer hesitated. "Sir, that's against Council protocols." "I am aware," Kylzin said, firmly. "Do it anyway." 4 hours later, the battle began. From the command center where they were now permitted to stay, Ryan and Heather watched as the Council fleet broke from their traditional formations. Instead of the coordinated movements they had always used, each ship now fought independently, targeting the swarm's connection points during transformation. For the first time, the swarm seemed confused. Their usual adaptive strategy faltered. Against the unpredictable attacks, several smaller swarm ships were destroyed before they could combine. "It's working," Heather whispered, but the advantage was temporary. The swarm was massive, and despite the new tactics, they began to push. Through the Council's defensive line, ships were lost on both sides, but the swarm had more to spare. Admiral Kyle Zinn watched grimly as his fleet fought bravely but continued to lose ground. "How much longer until your ships arrive?" he asked Ryan. 8 hours, Ryan replied. "Can you hold that long?" "No," Kyle Zinn said honestly, "but we will try." Just then a new alert sounded. One of the officers looked up in surprise. "Admiral, we're detecting hyperspace signatures, many ships emerging, but it's not the swarm." "Earth vessels?" Kyle Zinn asked. "No, sir. The signatures are... they're Council ships, from all member species." On the main screen, hyperspace portals opened all around the battlefield. Dozens, then hundreds of ships appeared, vessels from every Council species. They weren't the official Council fleet. These were civilian ships, research vessels, even private yachts, all armed with hastily attached weapons. A transmission came through on all channels. The face that appeared was that of Councillor Vareth, an elderly Dralkan who had voted against human involvement 50 years ago. "Admiral Kyle Zinn, this is Councillor Vareth. We received your battle data. The Council remains in session, arguing about what to do. But many of us couldn't wait for an official decision. We've brought every ship we could find." Kyle Zinn looked stunned. "Councillor, these aren't military vessels." "No," Vareth agreed, "but we watched the humans during the Krell War. We learned something from them after all. Sometimes you must break the rules to save lives." The battle shifted again. The civilian ships fought without military precision, but with a chaotic energy that confused the swarm even further. They targeted the connection points as Heather had suggested, sacrificing smaller ships to protect larger evacuation vessels. With this unexpected reinforcement, the Council forces managed to hold back the swarm. The evacuation of New Hope began in earnest, ships full of civilians breaking through the battle line to safety. Ryan and Heather worked tirelessly on the command center, coordinating between the Council ships and providing tactical suggestions based on their observations of the swarm's reactions. 7 hours into the battle, with the Council forces still holding but beginning to falter, Admiral Kyle Zinn received a new alert. "Hyperspace signatures detected. 50 ships emerging." The tactical officer's voice was tense. "It's the Earth fleet." The massive Earth dreadnought Defiance led the formation, flanked by warships that Council space hadn't seen in 50 years. They had clearly been improved upon, larger and more heavily armed than during the Krell War. A transmission came through from the Defiance. Captain Jack Reynolds appeared on screen, his expression determined. "This is Earth Fleet Command. Stand by for assistance." His eyes met Kyle Zinn's through the transmission. "We'll handle this, just stay out of our way." The human fleet moved into positions that violated every tactical doctrine in the Council's manuals, and as they engaged the swarm, the galaxy was reminded why humans had been banned from galactic wars in the first place. The Earth fleet moved with a speed and purpose that stunned even the Council's most experienced commanders. Unlike the perfect formations of Council ships, the human vessels spread out in what seemed like random patterns, constantly changing position. Admiral Kyle Zinn watched from the command center of the Dawn Eternal as the Earth ships engaged the Void Swarm. He turned to Ryan and Heather, who stood nearby studying the tactical displays. "What are they doing?" he asked. "There's no pattern to their movements." "That's the point," Ryan explained. "They're being unpredictable. The swarm can't adapt to what it can't predict." On the main screen, they watched as the human dreadnought Defiance deliberately took damage to its outer hull, drawing fire from 3 swarm ships. As the swarm concentrated their attack on the Defiance, 5 smaller Earth vessels swooped in, from different angles targeting the exposed connection points Heather had identified. "They're using themselves as bait," Kyle Zinn said, his skin changing to a deep blue color of amazement. Heather nodded. "Captain Reynolds is drawing their attention while the other ships attack from positions the swarm doesn't expect. The tactic worked." The 5 Earth vessels destroyed the 3 swarm ships before they could combine into a larger structure. But the Defiance had taken significant damage in the process. Why would they sacrifice their flagship like that? One of the Thalasian officers asked. They're not sacrificing it, Ryan said. They're using it. Earth ships are built to take damage and keep fighting. Their hulls are reinforced specifically for this kind of tactic. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Earth vessels positioned themselves in ways that seemed tactically unsound, drawing swarm attacks before revealing it was all part of a larger strategy. Some ships appeared to retreat, only to circle back and strike from unexpected angles. Others worked in small groups that formed and disbanded so quickly the swarm couldn't adapt. Captain Jack Reynolds' voice came through on a general channel. All Council vessels, this is Earth Command. We're going to open a corridor for the civilian evacuation ships. Form up behind our lead vessels and follow our path. Admiral Kylesen hesitated only briefly before responding. Understood, Captain Reynolds. Council fleet will follow your lead. The combined forces began to turn the tide of battle. The evacuation ships protected by the corridor created by Earth and Council vessels managed to escape with thousands of civilians aboard. But the swarm was still overwhelming in its numbers, and for every ship they destroyed, more seemed to appear. From their position on the Dawn Eternal, Ryan and Heather continued to analyze the swarm's behavior, sending their observations to both Council commanders and the Earth fleet. As they worked, Heather noticed something in the data. Look at this, she said to Ryan, pointing to her screen. The swarm seems to be drawing energy from somewhere. Their power readings are increasing, even though we're destroying their ships. Ryan studied the readings. They must have a central power source, something feeding energy to all the ships. They brought their discovery to Admiral Kylesen, who immediately contacted Captain Reynolds on the Defiance. Captain, our human observers have detected an energy source feeding the swarm. If we can locate and destroy it, we might be able to weaken the entire force at once. Reynolds's face on the screen was smudged with soot, and sparks flew in the background as his damaged ship continued to fight. Send me the data, he said. We'll find it. Working together, Earth and Council ships began scanning for the energy source. It was Heather who finally pinpointed its location. A massive swarm vessel hiding behind the moon of New Hope. That's their control ship, she announced. It's directing the smaller vessels and providing them with power. Captain Reynolds's voice came through again. We've identified the target, but it's heavily protected. We'll need a combined attack to break through. Admiral Kylesen looked at the tactical display. The path to the control ship was heavily guarded by swarm vessels. It would be a suicide mission, he said quietly. Not necessarily, Ryan countered. We just need a diversion. Something big enough to draw most of the swarm away from the control ship. The Admiral's skin changed to a thoughtful green color. What do you suggest? Ryan pointed to New Hope's second moon, a small, uninhabited rock rich in minerals. The swarm consumes resources, right? What if we give them something they can't resist? Heather caught on immediately. We could rig the moon with explosives, make it look like we're trying to deny them resources by destroying it. The swarm would move to stop us, Ryan continued, drawing ships away from the control vessel. Admiral Kylesen considered the plan. It was reckless, dangerous, and exactly the kind of thinking that had gotten humans banned from galactic wars. It was also their best chance to save millions of lives. How would we detonate an entire moon? He asked. We wouldn't actually destroy it, Heather explained. Just make the swarm think we're about to. A few strategic explosions on the surface would be enough. The plan was quickly communicated to Captain Reynolds, who approved immediately. Classic human distraction technique, he said with a grim smile. We'll handle the explosives. Admiral, have your fleet ready to strike the control ship the moment the swarm takes the bait. 6 Earth vessels broke away from the main battle, carrying mining explosives that had been hastily repurposed as weapons. They landed on the small moon and began setting charges while the rest of the Earth and Council fleets continued to fight, protecting the remaining evacuation ships. From the Dawn Eternal, Ryan and Heather watched as the trap was set. This is exactly why the Council banned us, Ryan said quietly. We turn anything into a weapon, even a moon. Heather nodded. And it's exactly why they need us now. The explosives were detonated in sequence, creating massive plumes of dust and rock that shot into space. Sensors across all ships detected the explosions, and as predicted, a large portion of the swarm immediately changed course toward the moon. They took the bait, Admiral Kilzin announced. All ships prepare to attack the control vessel. The combined Earth and Council fleets surged toward the now less protected control ship. The Defiance, despite its damage, led the charge. Earth vessels took the brunt of the defensive fire, allowing Council ships to target weak points with precision. As they closed in on the massive control ship, Captain Reynolds' voice came through one last time. "We're going to break through their outer defenses. Be ready to hit the core the moment we create an opening." The Defiance and 3 other Earth vessels accelerated to full speed, aiming directly at the control ship's main defense array. It was a maneuver that no Council commander would ever have approved, a deliberate collision course. At the last possible moment, the Earth ships fired all weapons at a single point, creating a breach in the control ship's defenses. 2 of the Earth vessels couldn't pull away in time and crashed into the swarm ship, tearing open a massive hole in its structure. "Now," shouted Admiral Kilzin, "all ships, target the breach." Every remaining vessel in the combined fleet fired into the opening, their weapons reaching the control ship's vulnerable core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a massive energy surge erupted from within the swarm vessel. It began to break apart, massive sections tearing away as internal explosions ripped through its structure. Across the battlefield, the effect was immediate. Smaller swarm ships began to drift aimlessly, their coordination lost. Some simply shut down, while others fired randomly, no longer following any discernible pattern. "We did it," Heather breathed, watching the tactical display as the swarm fell into chaos. The battle wasn't over. There were still hundreds of swarm ships to deal with, but without their control ship, they were no longer an organized force. One by one, the remaining swarm vessels were destroyed or disabled. As the fighting died down, Admiral Kilzin turned to Ryan and Heather. His skin had turned a deep purple color they had never seen before. "Is this what it was like?" he asked, quietly. "During the Krell War?" Ryan nodded. "This is why we fight the way we do. Sometimes the only way to win is to do the unexpected, even if it means breaking the rules." The Admiral looked back at the view screen, where the remnants of both fleets drifted among the debris of the battle. 2 Earth vessels had been completely destroyed in the final attack on the control ship. Dozens more were damaged, including the Defiance. "The Council was wrong to ban you," Kilzin said finally. "But I'm beginning to understand why they did." 2 weeks after the Battle of New Hope, Captain Jack Reynolds stood before the Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity with representatives from every Council species. Some faces showed gratitude, others wariness, and a few open hostility. The Earth fleet had saved New Hope and destroyed the Void Swarm control ship, but at a cost. 7 human vessels had been lost completely. 23 more, including the Dreadnought Defiance, needed major repairs. 39 human crew members had died, with over 100 injured. Council forces had suffered losses too, but the human sacrifices had drawn the most attention across the galaxy. News had spread quickly about Earthships deliberately taking damage to protect evacuation vessels, about the dangerous moon diversion plan, and about the final attack, where 2 Earthships crashed into the swarm control vessel to create a breach. Grand Counselor Valsheen, the same Ashari who had announced the ban 50 years earlier, now much older but still commanding respect, addressed Reynolds. "Captain Reynolds, Earth forces entered Council space with armed vessels, directly violating the ban established 50 years ago. The penalties for such violation are severe." Reynolds stood tall, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the battle. Behind him sat Ryan, Heather, and several other human observers who had been instrumental in the victory. "We were aware of the consequences when we made our decision, Counselor," Reynolds replied. 80 million lives were at stake. We chose to act rather than watch them die. "And yet," Valsheen continued, "those actions saved not only the citizens of New Hope, but possibly many more worlds that would have fallen to the swarm. The Council finds itself in a difficult position." From his seat near the front of the chamber, Counselor Vareth stood. The elderly Dralken who had led the civilian fleet at New Hope moved to the center of the floor. "If I may address the council," he said, his forearms held in a formal gesture. "I was present 50 years ago when we voted to ban humans from our conflicts. I voted in favor of that ban. I believed their methods too extreme, too willing to accept sacrifice." He turned to face Reynolds directly. "I was wrong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vareth continued. "At New Hope, I saw what humans truly are. They do not fight as we do because they see war differently. We see it as a political extension, a regrettable necessity conducted with rules and protocols. They see it as survival, pure and simple." He gestured to the human delegation. When a human ship took damage to protect civilian vessels, it wasn't following a tactical doctrine. It was following a moral one. The strong protect the weak, whatever the cost. Ryan leaned toward Heather. "Is he defending us?" he whispered. "I think he's trying to explain us," she replied quietly. Vareth wasn't finished. "The ban was justified, but not for the reasons we thought. We banned humans because they showed us something uncomfortable, that our civilized rules of warfare are a luxury. Against an enemy like the Krell or the Void Swarm, those rules become a liability." He faced the council again. "I propose we maintain the ban, but with an amendment. Humans are prohibited from galactic warfare except in cases of existential threat to civilian populations." The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members argued that any exception would eventually be abused. Others pointed out that without the humans, New Hope would have been lost completely. Throughout the arguments, Captain Reynolds and his team sat quietly. They had done what they believed right, regardless of political consequences. Whatever the council decided, Earth would continue to defend itself and others if needed. After hours of debate, a vote was called. The amendment passed by a narrow margin. Humans would remain banned from routine conflicts but could be called upon in times of dire need. As the council session ended, Admiral Kyle Zinn approached the human delegation. His skin had a warm golden hue, a sign of respect among Thalasians. "Captain Reynolds," he said, extending a hand in the human greeting style he had learned. "My people owe you a debt we can never repay. Half of New Hope's population was safely evacuated because of your actions." Reynolds shook the offered hand. "We did what anyone would do." "No," Kyle Zinn replied firmly. "That's what we finally understood. Not everyone would do what you did. Most species wouldn't. My own included." Later, as the humans prepared to return to their ships, a young Thalasian officer approached Ryan and Heather. "I have a question," he said hesitantly. "During the battle, the Defiance took severe damage to protect our evacuation ships. 2 of your vessels were destroyed, creating the breach in the control ship. Why were humans willing to die for species they barely knew?" Ryan looked at Heather, then back at the young officer. "Because that's what humans do," he replied simply. "We're at our best when things are at their worst." The officer considered this. "Is that why you were banned? Because you fight too hard?" "No," Heather said with a gentle smile. "We were banned because the galaxy couldn't bear the cost we were willing to pay for victory. But now they understand. Sometimes that cost is necessary." As the Earth fleet prepared to depart Council space, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Many were from New Hope survivors thanking the humans for their sacrifice. Others came from military commanders who had witnessed the battle, expressing new respect for Earth tactics. On the bridge of the repaired Defiance, Captain Reynolds read through the messages with mixed emotions. The victory had been costly. Good. People had been lost, but millions had been saved, and perhaps more importantly, a new understanding had been forged. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "Let's go home." "What about the ban, sir?" his first officer asked. "We're still technically restricted from most council space." Reynolds smiled slightly. "I have a feeling we'll be called back sooner than anyone expects. The galaxy's a dangerous place. Sometimes you need people willing to break the rules to save it." As the Earth fleet jumped to faster than light speed, News of their actions continued to spread. On countless worlds, people looked to the stars with new knowledge. Humans had been banned from galactic wars not because they were too dangerous to their enemies, but because they fought with a commitment few other species could understand or match. The ban remained in place, but its meaning had changed. What once had been seen as a punishment was now recognized as a somber acknowledgement. Humans were the galaxy's last resort, the ones you called when all other options had failed. In the years that followed, Earth continued to develop its technology and train its defense forces. They maintained the peace in their own system and honored the Council's ban, but they also kept their ships ready, their crews prepared, because sooner or later, the galaxy would need them again. And when that day came, humanity would answer the call just as they always had, not with perfect formations or careful strategies, but with an unbreakable will to protect life, whatever the cost. The galaxy now understood why humans were banned from galactic wars, and strangely enough, humanity took it as a compliment.